My husband's laughter echoed through the Phoenix courtroom like nails on a chalkboard as he openly bragged about stealing half my fortune, including my dead grandmother's estate, while the judge sat 3 feet away. "I married well, didn't I?" Grant smirked, turning to his lawyer like they'd just pulled off the heist of the century. $15 million from her company, $8 million from her grandmother, and she can't do a damn thing about it. The courtroom gasped. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but Grant just kept laughing, head thrown back, basking in what he thought was his guaranteed victory. He had no idea about the envelope in my purse, the one that was about to destroy him. Welcome back to Formidable Revenge, and I love you. If you love stories of justice served ice cold, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the Formidable Revenge channel, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. Judge Thornton's face turned scarlet as Grant's laughter filled her courtroom. She slammed her gavel once, twice, 3 times. "Mr. Blackwell, control yourself immediately!" But Grant couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. He was riding high on what he believed was certain victory, and watching him gloat over stealing my life's work made my blood turn to ice. Not hot, not angry, ice cold, clear, focused. "Your Honor," Grant's attorney, Victor Sterling, stood with his $1,000 suit and oil-slick smile. "My client apologizes for his enthusiasm, but frankly, the facts speak for themselves. Mrs. Blackwell has systematically attempted to hide marital assets from my client. California community property law is crystal clear. Everything acquired during marriage splits 50-50. Mr. Blackwell is simply claiming what's legally his." I watched Sterling lay out their demands with surgical precision. Half of my tech company, now worth $15 million. Half of my grandmother's estate, the properties, the antiques, the legacy of a woman who'd raised me after my parents died. Another $8 million. All of it just handed over to a man who'd never worked a day for any of it. Furthermore, Sterling continued, Mr. Blackwell's contributions to the marital estate cannot be understated. His financial expertise directly contributed to Mrs. Blackwell's business success. His networking connections secured crucial partnerships. His emotional support during her most challenging developmental phases. Emotional support. The words escaped my lips before I could stop them. Judge Thornton's eyes cut to me. "Mrs. Blackwell, you'll have your turn to speak." But Grant was already pivoting toward me, and the look on his face made my skin crawl. Pure calculation, stone-cold victory. This wasn't the man I'd married 4 years ago. This was a stranger wearing Grant's face, and he was about to take everything. "Isabella." His voice dripped with false sympathy, using the name he knew I hated, the one legally tied to him instead of my maiden name, Rivera. "We both know I made you successful. Without my guidance, you'd still be coding in your grandmother's basement." My lawyer, Rebecca, gripped my arm in warning, but I felt something snap inside me. 4 years of manipulation, 4 years of lies, 4 years of being positioned like a chess piece in someone else's game. I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope. Grant's laughter died mid-breath. His eyes locked onto that envelope like it was a loaded gun, and every instinct he had suddenly screamed danger. Drop a comment right now. What do you think is in that envelope? And don't forget to subscribe because this story is just getting started. 4 years earlier, I'd believed in fairy tales. 29 years old, fresh off selling my first app for $3 million, standing in a Denver ballroom at a charity gala for children's hospitals. I was bidding on a weekend in Aspen when Grant appeared beside me like he'd been waiting his whole life for that exact moment. "Audrey Rivera?" His smile could have melted titanium. "The woman who just revolutionized educational technology?" 6'2", designer suit, watch that cost more than my first car. Grant Blackwell worked at Premier Capital Group, and he talked about my work like I'd invented fire. Most men I dated either ignored my success or resented it. Grant worshipped it. Our first date lasted 6 hours. He brought yellow roses, my favorite, somehow he knew, and listened like every word I said mattered. When I confessed my fears about being a one-hit wonder, he took my hand across the table. "Audrey, brilliance isn't luck. You earned every bit of this." The next 8 months felt like living inside a dream. Surprise lunches during my 80-hour work weeks. Flowers delivered with notes calling me the woman changing the world. He even learned basic programming to understand my work better. When my second app, Brain Boost, exploded with 7 million downloads, Grant celebrated harder than I did. He proposed at the same gala where we'd met, on one knee in front of 500 people. "Audrey Rivera, you make me believe in magic. Marry me and let me spend forever supporting your dreams." Through tears, I said yes. I had no idea I was signing my own death warrant. My grandmother Rosa died 18 months into our marriage. Breast cancer, fast and brutal. She'd raised me after the accident that killed my parents when I was 11, taught me that women bow to no one, depend on no one. She'd built a real estate empire in the 1970s when banks wouldn't even give women credit cards. Her will left me speechless. The Victorian mansion in Cherry Creek worth $5 million, 3 rental properties worth another $2 million. Her jewelry and art collection, another $1 million. $8 million total, because she believed I understood the value of independence. Grant's reaction should have warned me. His eyes lit up like slot machines, hitting jackpot. $8 million? Audrey, we could buy that ranch in Evergreen, the boat I've been eyeing. We? My voice came out small. We're partners, babe. Your win is my win. Except his partnership started looking like ownership. $60,000 sports car purchased without asking. Rolex collection that cost more than most people's annual salary. Designer suits, country club memberships, first-class flights to Vegas. I'm not your charity case, he'd snap when I questioned expenses. I have my own money. Besides, we're married. What's yours is mine. Comment below. Have you ever ignored red flags in someone you loved? Hit that like button if you're glued to this story. The knife slid into my back on a Tuesday afternoon in March, exactly 3 years into our marriage. I'd been debugging code in my home office when I realized I'd left my laptop charger at the downtown office. Grant had already left for work, so I grabbed his favorite Thai food, pad Thai with extra peanuts, and headed to surprise him. Premier Capital Group's 20th floor office had glass-walled conference rooms. The receptionist waved me through with a smile. He's in conference room C with a colleague. I walked down the hallway carrying that bag of food, actually excited to see his face light up. Through the glass wall, I saw Grant in conference room C. He had Vanessa Brooks pressed against the conference table, hands tangled in her auburn hair, kissing her like he was drowning and she was air. She was laughing between kisses, fingers trailing down his chest, comfortable and familiar in a way that screamed this wasn't new. The bag slipped from my hands. Thai food exploded across the marble floor, the sound like a gunshot. Grant's head snapped up. Our eyes met through the glass. For one heartbeat, I saw panic flash across his face. Then he smiled, gently pushed Vanessa away. Smiled at me like he'd been caught eating cookies before dinner, not destroying our marriage. I ran. Made it to my car before the sobs started. Body shaking, soul-crushing sobs that felt like they'd tear me apart. 3 years. 3 years of believing this man loved me, supported me, wanted me. All lies. Grant came home that evening like nothing happened. Loosened his tie, kissed my cheek, asked about my day in that casual tone that made me want to scream. I saw you. My voice came out steady, cold. With Vanessa, in the conference room. He sighed like I was being unreasonable. Audrey, you're overreacting. Vanessa and I work closely. High-stress environments create complications. Complications? My voice cracked. You were kissing her like you love her. I love you. Flat, mechanical. Vanessa understands the pressure I'm under. You're always buried in your apps, your company. A man has needs. The casual cruelty hit harder than his fist ever could. So this is my fault, because I work hard. Grant's mask slipped. Something cold and calculating slithered out from underneath. Let's be honest, Audrey. This marriage has been mutually beneficial. You got a supportive husband. I got a lot of things. My blood turned to ice. What's that supposed to mean? He walked to our wine fridge, pulled out a bottle like we were discussing the weather. It means I've invested 3 years in this relationship. Been the cheerleader, the supportive husband, the guy who puts your dreams first. I think I've earned some return on that investment. Return on investment? Grant poured wine, took a slow sip. You're worth $23 million now, Audrey. Your grandmother's estate alone is $8 million. I've been instrumental in building this life with you. I deserve my fair share. Your fair share of my inheritance? My work? He smiled, and it was nothing like the smile that made me fall in love. California is community property, babe. 50-50 split, including business growth and inheritances received during marriage. I realized with dawning horror, this wasn't confession. This was a negotiation. You planned this, I whispered. All of it. I plan to win, Audrey. I always do. What would you do in Audrey's position? Revenge is coming, and it's going to be biblical. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later, delivered by a process server who looked apologetic. Blackwell versus Blackwell printed across the top in letters that felt like a brand. Grant had hired Victor Sterling, and when I told Rebecca that name, her face went ghost white. Sterling represented 4 tech executives' ex-husbands in the past 6 years, Rebecca explained during our emergency meeting. Each time, he walked away with settlements that made national news. We're not just fighting Grant, Audrey. We're fighting a machine designed to annihilate successful women. Grant's demands were staggering. Half my company, $7.5 million. Half my grandmother's estate, $4 million. Half of all marital assets, including investment accounts, vehicles, even Grandma Rosa's antique jewelry. But the narrative Sterling crafted was worse. According to their filing, Grant had sacrificed his own career advancement to support mine, provided crucial business guidance that directly contributed to my success. My apps only became profitable because of Grant's investment expertise and networking connections. All lies. But lies wrapped in legal language that sounded disturbingly believable. The inheritance claim is our biggest threat, Rebecca warned. Normally, inherited assets stay separate, but they're arguing that since you inherited during the marriage and Grant helped manage and improve those properties, he's entitled to half. He never managed anything. He barely visited Grandma Rosa's house. I know. But Sterling is brilliant at creating narratives that convince judges who don't know the truth. The depositions were 8 hours of psychological warfare. Sterling twisted every conversation, every business dinner where Grant had introduced me to potential clients, every piece of advice he'd ever given. Isn't it true, Mrs. Blackwell, that your husband's connections in the investment industry helped secure your partnership with EduTech Enterprises? No. I got that deal because my app had 7 million downloads. But didn't your husband facilitate the initial meeting at a charity gala? He introduced us at a party, so you admit your husband's networking directly led to your most profitable contract. On and on, taking grains of truth and building mountains of lies. Meanwhile, Grant played the devoted husband perfectly. During his deposition, he actually cried. I could have started my own firm years ago, but Audrey needed me. Her business was growing so fast, she was overwhelmed. I spent countless nights helping her strategize, reviewing contracts. I believed we were building something together. When Sterling asked about the inheritance, Grant's performance deserved an Oscar. Rosa was like a grandmother to me. I spent holidays with her, helped Audrey manage the properties after Rosa passed. I even coordinated the renovations on the Cherry Creek mansion that increased its value by $600,000. More lies. Grant had hired contractors with my money, never lifted a finger himself. The worst moment came when Sterling presented evidence of Grant's contributions, emails where I'd thanked him for his support, photos of us at business events, even a recording of me introducing him as my partner in everything at a company celebration. Everything I'd said out of love, weaponized against me. Mrs. Blackwell, Sterling smiled like a shark scenting blood. Isn't it true you yourself acknowledged your husband as an equal partner in your success? Sitting in that conference room, watching my own words become chains, I felt more alone than I had since my parents died. Grant was going to win. We both knew it. Are you Team Audrey? Drop a comment. The revenge is about to get sweet. 3 weeks before our final hearing, Rebecca walked into my office with an expression I'd never seen before. Part determination, part barely contained fury. Audrey, I need you to trust me on something. She closed the door. I want to hire a private investigator. I looked up from financial documents I'd reviewed 100 times, searching for angles Sterling hadn't already exploited. Rebecca, we've discussed this. We can't afford to look vindictive. The judge already thinks I'm hiding assets. This isn't about vindictiveness. It's about survival. She sat across from me, her usually perfect composure cracking. I've practiced family law for 22 years. I've seen men like Grant before. They don't just wake up and decide to destroy their wives. This is a pattern. Something in her tone made me put down my papers. What do you mean? I mean Grant Blackwell is too good at this. The way he positioned himself in your life, the timing of when he changed, how perfectly he's playing victim in court. It's like he's done this before. Rebecca slid a business card across my desk. Patricia Hayes, best investigator in the state. Specializes in financial fraud and matrimonial cases. If Grant has secrets, she'll find them. I stared at the card, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: hope. How much will this cost? Everything left in our legal budget. But Audrey, if I'm right about Grant, this could save everything you've worked for. Patricia Hayes looked nothing like TV investigators. Small woman in her 50s, graying hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked more like a librarian than someone who uncovered people's darkest secrets. I'll need access to everything, she told us during our first meeting. Bank records, credit reports, employment history, social media accounts, and I need you to tell me everything about how you met, how your relationship developed, every detail you can remember. For 2 weeks, Patricia worked like a woman possessed. She traced Grant's employment history, interviewed former colleagues, even tracked down his college roommates. Meanwhile, I tried to focus on court preparation, but couldn't shake the feeling we were running out of time. Then, on a Friday afternoon, Patricia called Rebecca with 4 words that changed everything. "You need to see this." We met at Rebecca's office that evening. Patricia had spread documents across the conference table like puzzle pieces, and the picture they formed made my stomach turn. "Grant Blackwell has done this twice before," Patricia announced without preamble. She pointed to a photograph of a stunning blonde. "Meet Rachel Bennett, tech executive from Seattle, married Grant in 2018, divorced in 2019. She was worth $14 million when they met, $6 million when they divorced." My hands started shaking. What happened to the other $8 million? Grant happened. Patricia pulled out another set of documents. He convinced her to add his name to business accounts, just like you, then systematically drained them while building a case that he deserved half of everything in divorce. The second photograph showed a brunette with haunted eyes. Sarah Lancaster, pharmaceutical heiress from Portland, married Grant in 2016, divorced in 2017. She inherited $18 million from her father during their marriage. Guess how much she had left after divorce? $9 million, I whispered. $7 million. Grant got $11 million total, his half of the inheritance plus compensation for emotional distress caused by Sarah's workaholic tendencies. Rebecca was furiously taking notes. How did he get away with this? Why didn't anyone catch the pattern? Because he's smart, Patricia said grimly. Changes cities, changes his approach slightly each time. Targets successful women who are too trusting. Women who believe in love more than protecting themselves. Did you see this coming? Patricia wasn't finished. She pulled out a thick folder that made my heart race. The best part is what I found about his current activities. Grant hasn't just been stealing your money, Audrey. He's been actively embezzling from your business accounts for the past 16 months. She spread out bank statements and transaction records. $2.4 million moved through shell companies that all trace back to accounts controlled by Grant and Vanessa Brooks. Vanessa's involved? I gasped. Up to her neck. She's been helping him launder money through fake investment opportunities. They've been planning this for over a year. Rebecca looked up from her notes, and for the first time in months, she was smiling. Audrey, we don't just have a defense anymore. We have a weapon. But my relief was short-lived. The next morning, I woke to my phone exploding with notifications. Grant had leaked our financial records to the press. Tech heiress Audrey Rivera attempts to hide millions from husband in bitter divorce. The headlines were everywhere. Grant had spun the narrative perfectly, painting himself as the wronged spouse fighting a greedy wife trying to steal his rightful share. My business partners were calling. Investors were panicking. My company's stock was plummeting. "He's forcing our hand," Rebecca said during our emergency conference call. "If we reveal the embezzlement evidence now, it looks like retaliation for the press leak. The judge could view it as us manufacturing evidence out of desperation." "So what do we do?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "We wait for court, present it to Judge Thornton directly. But Audrey, Grant has created the perfect trap. If we look vindictive, we lose credibility. If we stay silent, he controls the narrative." The final hearing was set for Wednesday. By Monday, my company had lost $3 million in market value. 2 investors pulled out of pending deals. The board was calling emergency meetings. Tuesday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Grant's laughter in my head, that smug certainty that he'd won. Maybe he had. Maybe Patricia's evidence wouldn't be enough. Maybe Sterling would twist it somehow, make it look like I was the villain. At 3 a.m., I stood in my grandmother's Victorian mansion, the house Grant wanted half of, and read the letter Grandma Rosa had written me before she died. "Audrey, mija, the world will try to take from you. Men will see your success and think it's theirs to claim. But remember, you bow to no one. When they come for what's yours, you show them exactly who you are. A woman who builds empires doesn't beg, she demolishes. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in Grandma Rosa's jewelry box. Then I picked up the phone and called Rebecca. "I know what to do," I said. "Grant wants a show? Let's give him one he'll never forget. What would you do with that evidence?" And subscribe to see how Audrey destroys him. Wednesday morning. The Phoenix courthouse steps felt like walking toward my execution or my coronation. I wasn't sure which. Grant was already there with Sterling, surrounded by reporters. He was playing the wounded husband perfectly, dabbing at his eyes with a handkerchief like this whole ordeal was breaking his heart. "I just want what's fair," he told the cameras. "I supported Audrey's dreams for 4 years. I don't think asking for my legal share makes me a villain." Rebecca squeezed my arm as we pushed through the media circus. "Remember the plan. Stay calm. Let him hang himself." Inside courtroom 5B, the fluorescent lights felt harsh and unforgiving. Grant sat at his table with Sterling, both of them radiating confidence. Grant caught my eye and smirked. That same smirk he'd worn while kissing Vanessa, while demanding half my grandmother's legacy, while destroying everything I'd built. Judge Thornton entered and we all stood. She was a formidable woman in her late 50s, known for having zero tolerance for BS in her courtroom. Our only hope was that she'd see through Grant's performance. "We're here for final arguments in Blackwell versus Blackwell," Judge Thornton announced. "Mr. Sterling, you may begin." Sterling stood, smoothing his designer tie. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of community property law. My client, Grant Blackwell, spent 4 years as the supportive spouse, providing crucial emotional and professional support that directly contributed to Mrs. Blackwell's success. He is entitled to half of all marital assets, including business growth and inheritances received during the marriage." He laid out their case with surgical precision. The emails, the photos, the testimony from Grant's depositions about all his contributions to my success. The legal precedents for including inherited property in community splits when one spouse enhanced that property. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and I could see Judge Thornton taking notes, her expression unreadable. Then Sterling delivered his closing punch. "Your Honor, Mrs. Blackwell has attempted to paint my client as some kind of opportunist, but the evidence shows a devoted husband who sacrificed his own ambitions to support his wife's dreams. He deserves his fair share of what they built together." Grant stood up then, and I felt my blood pressure spike. He was about to make his statement. "Your Honor," Grant began, his voice heavy with false emotion, "I loved Audrey with everything I had. I still do. All I'm asking for is what California law says I'm owed. Half of everything acquired during our marriage, including her company, worth $15 million, and her grandmother's estate, worth $8 million. Judge Thornton looked at him over her glasses. "Mr. Blackwell, you're requesting $11.5 million from your wife of 4 years? "I'm requesting what's legally mine, Your Honor." Grant's voice was steady, confident. "California is a community property state. I'm simply claiming my rights." Then he turned to look at me, and something shifted in his expression, something dark and triumphant. "I mean, let's be honest here, Your Honor." Grant's lips curved into a smile. "I played this perfectly. Married a rich woman, supported her just enough to claim I contributed, and now I'm walking away with half her fortune, including her dead grandmother's money." The courtroom went dead silent. Sterling grabbed Grant's arm, trying to pull him down, but Grant shook him off. Grant started laughing. Not a chuckle, a full, loud, head-thrown-back laugh that echoed through the courtroom like a victory bell. "I'm sorry, Your Honor," he said between laughs, "but this is just too perfect. I'm taking half her millions, including her grandmother's estate, and there's nothing she can do about it. The law's on my side." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers. Someone shouted, "Are you kidding me?" Judge Thornton slammed her gavel. "Mr. Blackwell, control yourself immediately." But Grant couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. "I married well, didn't I? $23 million, and half of it's about to be mine. All I had to do was play the supportive husband for 4 years. Sterling looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Your Honor, my client is clearly under emotional distress." "Your Honor," I stood up slowly, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Every eye in the room turned to me as I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "I think you need to see this." Grant's laughter died instantly. His face went pale as I walked toward Judge Thornton's bench, my heels clicking against the marble floor with the finality of a countdown. I handed the envelope to Judge Thornton with steady hands, even though my heart was trying to break through my ribs. "Your Honor, I believe this will clarify Mr. Blackwell's true character and intentions." Judge Thornton took the envelope, eyebrows raised. She opened it carefully and began reading the documents inside. I watched her face transform, confusion to shock to something that looked almost like rage. She looked at Grant, back at the papers, at Grant again. Then, Judge Patricia Thornton did something I'd never seen a judge do in a courtroom before. She laughed. One short, sharp bark of laughter that held no humor, only bitter irony. "Mr. Sterling," her voice could have cut glass, "I suggest you advise your client to remain seated and silent for what I'm about to say." She turned to face Grant directly, and I watched him shrink back in his chair like a child caught stealing. "Mr. Blackwell, in 32 years on this bench, I have seen many cases of marital misconduct, but what I'm holding here represents one of the most calculated, cruel, and criminal schemes I've ever encountered." Judge Thornton held up the first document. "This is a detailed financial investigation showing that you have systematically embezzled $2.4 million from your wife's business accounts over 16 months. Money moved through shell companies registered under false names. Your Honor, I can explain." "You will remain silent," Judge Thornton's voice boomed. "I'm not finished." She picked up the second set of documents. "This investigation also reveals that you have committed this exact same fraud against two previous wives, Rachel Bennett of Seattle and Sarah Lancaster of Portland, both successful businesswomen. Both left financially devastated after divorcing you." The gallery exploded. Someone screamed, "Oh my God!" Another voice, "He's a monster!" Furthermore, Judge Thornton's voice rose above the chaos. "The evidence shows your accomplice, Vanessa Brooks, helped establish these fraudulent accounts and has been receiving payments from the stolen funds. Ms. Brooks is currently being arrested at her workplace as we speak." Grant's face went from pale to green. He looked like he might vomit. Judge Thornton stood, her black robes making her look like an avenging angel. "Mr. Blackwell, not only will you receive nothing from this divorce, but you are hereby ordered to pay Mrs. Rivera restitution of $2.4 million for the funds you stole, plus an additional $3 million in punitive damages for fraud, embezzlement, and emotional distress. Comment below if you're cheering right now, and subscribe, because we're not done yet." "Your Honor, please." Grant tried to stand, but Sterling yanked him back down. "I'm still not finished," Judge Thornton said coldly. "Mrs. Rivera will retain full ownership of her business, her grandmother's estate, and all marital assets. You, Mr. Blackwell, will leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it, nothing." She picked up her gavel, and I could see Grant flinching. "Additionally, I am ordering that copies of this evidence be forwarded immediately to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Mr. Blackwell, you are looking at charges of grand theft, fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and racketeering. Given your pattern of targeting and defrauding multiple victims across state lines, federal charges are also likely." The gavel came down like thunder. "This court is adjourned. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Blackwell into custody pending arraignment on criminal charges." Everything happened fast after that. Two bailiffs approached Grant, who had gone completely limp in his chair. As they helped him stand and began reading his rights, he turned to look at me one last time. The arrogance was gone. The smirk was gone. In its place was raw fear and disbelief, like he couldn't comprehend how his perfect plan had imploded. "Audrey," he called out as the bailiffs led him toward the door. "Audrey, please, we can work this out. I love you." I stood slowly, feeling stronger than I had in 4 years. "No, Grant, you loved my money. There's a difference." As the courtroom doors closed behind him, Rebecca's hand found my shoulder. "It's over. You're free." I looked around the courtroom, at Judge Thornton, who had delivered justice, at the gallery of strangers who had witnessed Grant's downfall, at the empty chair where my lying, cheating, stealing husband had sat moments before. For the first time in 4 years, I could breathe again. 6 months later, I stood in Grandma Rosa's Victorian mansion, fully mine, no strings attached, holding a glass of wine and looking at the evening news on my tablet. Grant Blackwell sentenced to 15 years for serial fraud scheme. The federal prosecutor had been ruthless. With evidence from all 3 wives and testimony from Vanessa Brooks, who'd flipped on Grant for a reduced sentence, they'd built an airtight case. Grant was looking at 15 years in federal prison, plus restitution to all 3 victims, totaling over $20 million. My company had recovered. The investors who'd fled came crawling back once the truth emerged. We'd just launched our 3rd app to record-breaking downloads. But the sweetest revenge wasn't the money or the vindication. It was standing in my grandmother's house, financially whole, emotionally healing, and completely free. I raised my glass to Grandma Rosa's portrait hanging above the fireplace. You were right, Grandma. A woman who builds empires doesn't beg, she demolishes. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Rachel and Sarah want to have lunch. They're starting a foundation to help women in similar situations. Interested? I smiled and typed back, absolutely. Grant had tried to break 3 women. Instead, he'd created 3 warriors who would make sure no one else fell for his scheme. Sometimes revenge isn't just about destroying your enemy. It's about building something stronger from the ashes they tried to leave you in. And I was just getting started. If you loved this story of revenge served ice cold, smash that like button, subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more stories of justice delivered, and comment below telling me where you're watching from and what you'd name a foundation to help women like Audrey, Rachel, and Sarah. Please share this video with anyone who needs to know that karma is real and she's absolutely savage. Until next story from us, stay formidable.